Support for Headline Humboldt is made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Coming up on Headline Humboldt, if you spot drones in the sky appearing to haunt your neighborhood, it's not UFOs and it's not the government, at least not yet. We'll explain. Also, Kerry Venegas from Changing Tides Family Services joins us to discuss her agency's 50 years in the community supporting local families and how they're now working to add 50 more. Coming up now on Headline Humboldt.
From the top of Humboldt Hill, this is Headline Humboldt. I'm James Falk. Thanks for joining us. How to effectively balance the needs of a professional career against those of a young and growing family is a conundrum that shapes our society in profound ways. Children are taught from a young age to value the external achievements of school and job, perhaps more than the often mundane-seeming achievement of building and sustaining loving and supportive relationships. Most often, this is not a lifestyle choice. Economic pressures dictate almost universally that in most homes, in most parts of this country, both parents absolutely have to work in order to make basic ends meet. This issue is compounded by the fact that working outside the home has its own cost. Childcare is a huge expense and effectively decimates whatever income people generate through their work. So you end up working just to be able to afford to work. This cycle grinds on, and the importance of family in the first place can get lost. Organizations like Changing Tides Family Services helps families stay sane in this excruciating situation, offering help to working families and helping them reach a place of stability and economic security. Our guest today is Kerry Venegas from Changing Tides Family Services, and she'll help us understand their mission and impact over this past half century. But first, the news. The protests locally and across the country continue to grow as the nation reels from an avalanche of chaotic changes brought on by the still young Trump administration. This past weekend was the biggest protest yet in front of the Humboldt County Courthouse, straddling both sides of Highway 101 South and spilling off into neighborhood parking lots. The sounds of frustration were readily heard, along with occasional song choruses and the supporting honk of passing motorists. People at the event are becoming friends, recognizing each other's faces from event to event, and building a kind of desperate solidarity in the face of a rising threat to democracy. They come from all walks of life, every social corner, yet here they seem to cohere. It's a natural development in a time of crisis and signals that unity may still be possible for a country long raised on the opinionated forums of social media sites and partisan cable news channels. Will it be enough? Pacific Gas and Electric Company is letting the public know that soon it will be deploying drones along its service lines in order to spot areas of concern. Their message? Don't worry, these machines are not looking at your house nor peeking in your garden. They will only be gathering data on the condition of PG&E's infrastructure. KEET contributor Ryan Hudson interviewed a company spokesperson as they demonstrated just such a drone flight.
One of the things we want folks to know, as Janet just mentioned, is that this is not looking in your backyard. We're not interested in your house. We're not interested in your family. We're not interested in your yard. We are strictly looking at the electrical structures on our wooden poles, those are distribution poles, and our transmission towers, these larger metal structures that you see. We are taking these photos to make the system safer, quicker. In the past, you would have had to have a line worker climb each of these poles and structures to inspect the assets on top of these poles. Mm-hmm. Now we get a bird's eye view. We can look from the top down and see exactly what is in good shape and what is in not good shape and needs to be addressed and repaired immediately. The image quality that we get off of our drone photos is remarkable. It is high quality, high resolution, zoomable images. We can see the threads on a bolt. If the threads on the bolt are not good, we can have a ticket made that day for that piece of infrastructure to be repaired, and therefore the system is instantly safer. This is cost efficient, this is time efficient, and this is safety effective. We fly at structures in our highest fire threat areas once a year.
Right.
Our lower fire threat areas might be a cadence of every 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
But we like to get most of our drone flights in ahead of fire season to make sure that as things heat up, as winds might pick up, our structures are in good condition to keep delivering reliable power to your home and be safe.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Hi, I'm Arne Hjeltnes. I'm on my way to record another episode of People of the North. I truly believe in storytelling, sharing voices from my native Norway and beyond. That's what public media is all about. So when Public Media Giving Days approach, I want to thank you for your support. It really makes a difference.
Did you know that donating your used vehicle to your local PBS station will give you access to PBS Passport? With Passport, you can watch incredible dramas from Masterpiece, documentaries from Ken Burns, great performances, Nova, Nature, and more. Why let that old car, truck, motorcycle, or RV gather dust when it could make a real difference? Your generosity can help keep the quality programming you love on air. Each vehicle donation helps us in our mission to foster a love of learning culture and community. So take pride in your ride and get streaming with Passport.
Joining us now in studio is Kerry Venegas, Executive Director of Changing Tides Family Services. Welcome.
Thank you.
So first things first, you guys saved our lives as a young couple for a lot of years. We were making, relatively low wages, and if we hadn't had that help, we wouldn't have been able to keep working and to support our family and do all those things. I mean, it was really that stark. If we hadn't had that money, we wouldn't have been able to work, because it was so expensive. It is so expensive to pay for childcare. So we have a lot to talk about. You guys have done a lot of great work. Let's start with, for people who may not know, what is Changing Tides Family Services and what is its mission in our community?
Well, thank you. And also lovely to hear that story, because really that's the heart of what we do. So we are a full service family agency, meaning that we have multiple services, including helping for childcare, behavioral health, mental health support, parenting support groups, classes. We do supervised visitation through family court. We also have nutrition services. You can get childcare referrals. We can talk to folks about a variety of other services. We're a CalFresh place where you can come get information and have assistance signing up for CalFresh. In addition to a lot of the other odds and ends we do, we have, and I'm so sorry, a major portion is disability support services for our disability community here, including respite for families who may need a break off and on, or help learning how to navigate a grocery store, things like that. So that's a large portion.
Not just for kids, that's for all ages.
No, that's for all ages.
Yeah, wow.
Yep,
cool.
That goes from birth all the way on.
Cool.
So wide variety of things that we do, but where we started is actually as a workforce development program, as a matter of fact. Mm-hmm. And back in 1975, Humboldt County was up against a slim workforce, and people couldn't go to work because they had children.
Yeah.
And we were starting down that period of having two parents go to work and need to go to work to make ends meet. So a really dedicated group of people came together and said, well, as a community, we need to take action. We need good childcare. We need people to know that their kids are not only safe and well looked after, but they're also learning. They're having fun. They're getting ready for school. They're having all of those opportunities from a very young age, and parents can go to work, not have to worry about it, and be able to afford to go to work.
Yeah.
So we started out workforce development funding from the county. It originally came from the county to help parents have a stipend to pay for childcare and find childcare.
Yeah.
And then we've evolved from there, and so now there's state subsidies available for parents. What a lot of parents don't know is that those income thresholds have actually grown with inflation growing, so it's fairly high.
Yeah.
So if you aren't sure, just a message to everyone who might be watching, if you aren't sure because you think you may earn too much, give us a call anyway.
Yeah. And they may do like a sort of break it down to where people who make more get less help but still get help. Is that right?
And still get help. Yep.
Yeah.
At a certain point.
They may be able to relieve some of the pressure while not taking the whole expense on.
Right, but every little bit counts. We know that it's increasing every year, but roughly, especially in our area, over a third of a family's income goes to childcare.
So insane. And that problem has been a growing problem. Can you talk a little bit about, when you were in the 1970s, obviously, a county stipend was a little bit amount of money. Now it's a lot more expensive to put kids in childcare, and if you have multiple kids, it just gets out of this world. So you guys have had to figure out how to raise the money to kind of keep that service going and to expand it as much as possible. How complex is that, to find that kind of revenue on a regular basis to help so many families, stay afloat?
Well, the good news is that actually it's a state program.
Okay.
That we administer. So the bulk of that money actually is state and
So
then
that comes
some
through
federal.
one program. Okay, cool.
Right. It comes through multiple programs, including the one that's associated with CalWorks, which is for families who are getting training, getting work training, education training, coming through that side of county services. There's childcare available for that. And then there's multiple programs that anyone can apply for too. And keeping in mind too that childcare can look really different. You can have a preschool, you can go to a childcare center, you can also have a family, friend, and neighbor, which a majority of the outlying areas in our county don't have centers, and they may not even have licensed family childcare homes, which is another big part of childcare. But they have a family, friend, or neighbor they trust and who can be background checked, and they can receive support for that as well.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be someone that's a stranger. Or,
Exactly.
Yeah, that kind of flexibility is key, I think, for folks. We're looking at a situation right now where there's been a lot of changes from the federal government. You mentioned that you do have some federal funding. Are you guys impacted right now by what you're seeing in Washington, D.C., and how are you worried that maybe some of the downstream impacts may ultimately land at your door? For instance, the food bank may see some cuts. Is that going to affect you guys? Where do you see your impact?
So I think that it's all related, right? So the majority of the funding that we actually administer for programs comes through the state, but it's passed through. And about 30 to 45% of that is federal funds that get commingled with state dollars that then go out to counties or areas or agencies like ours to help families at a local level.
Okay.
So no matter how you slice it, eventually that is going to have an impact.
Yeah.
Things that get cut. There's more immediate cuts. We don't have direct federal funding. We don't administer things like that, but we know that a lot of our families, food for people, housing, all of those things are direct federally funded.
Yeah.
And that's going to put such a heavy burden on our families in this community. We're all doing our part to make sure that people have the right data. Like they know exactly, like this isn't necessarily just numbers, these are people. And there are neighbors, there are friends, there are family members.
Yeah.
So
now how many, in terms of your annual budget, how much money do you guys see pass through you, and how much do you put out in the community in order to help support families?
That's an excellent question. So our budget is right around 18 million this year, right? And the majority of that goes right out the door, almost 90% of it, which hence the word nonprofit, right? Not in it to make a profit, which is a good thing. And we're always accountable for all of those dollars down to the last cent. So in childcare, for example, we're getting pretty close to about $1 million out the door in the voucher payments that go out on behalf of parents to pay for their childcare.
Wow, that's amazing. All those families get to work because that little bit of extra help. As I said, when we were a young family, especially, we would not have been able to make ends meet if we hadn't had the support. So, in that regard, thank you very much for what you guys do. You've been doing it for 50 years. How would you say the picture and the role of, Changing Tides, it used to be called Humboldt Child Care Council, how has it evolved over that time? I mean, if it started out just with stipends for families to help them work, but now you cover all these other services, how did that happen? What was the movement there?
So I think it was seeing the need in the community, right? Because our focus and our mission is we want to make sure that families, children, individuals in our community are healthy, have what they need, have access to everything that everybody in our community deserves. And we would see like a gap. If we could be helpful in that gap, that's where we started adding things. So we added disability services back in 1976. We actually started respite back then.
Yeah.
We added a supported parenting program. We also had a focus in that on parents with disabilities, because everybody wants to have a family life and a home, have kids, have a good community.
Yeah.
So we added that, and then we added mental health services probably right around 2000, 2002, right in there somewhere, but we'd already been doing things that were mental health supports.
Yeah.
And so we've just gradually added things that improve the quality of our community at large, that really help support families out there to be healthy and well, and have people have an opportunity at success, right? Because you can go to work, you can go to school, you can access good quality food. As a matter of fact, I'll extend an invitation. We have 6 buildings right by Eureka Floors over in Myrtletown, and we have container gardens where you can see that you can grow a garden and harvest even blueberries, anything you want to grow right in the middle of town. You don't actually necessarily need to have a backyard garden. You can have a container and you can walk out your door every day and pick lettuce in the season, grow potatoes, grow berries.
That's amazing. One of the things that this community has seen, and it's happened all over the country really, is that there has been an increasing demand for things like special education services. At Eureka High or Eureka City Schools, there's recently been some budget cutbacks that have impacted some elementary school kids where they're not going to have the numbers of aides in the class that they used to have, and that's been kind of an ongoing trend. But you guys are helping to kind of fill that gap a little bit, right? Can you talk a little bit about what work you guys do in terms of special education support? Or
well, respite services kind of run the gamut. They're actually meant to be supportive of families.
Okay.
One-on-one supports, working with siblings, sometimes giving families a break, but also being able to go out in the community, into school, and give extra support.
Yeah.
Right? As people need them.
Yeah.
There's another really great program that we actually launched in the last year and a half, which is the Family Empowerment Center. And what it is it is a nice little space, a parent space. It looks like a living room, and we have family navigators. And that's for parents who are trying to navigate special education systems in schools or in childcare or out in the community, understanding what their rights are, what their children can benefit from, how they ask for the things that actually they're entitled to by law.
Yeah.
And sometimes just getting that moment to breathe with people who understand what the journey looks like, and they're on your side.
Yeah. Community a little bit, like community and support, and feel like you're not alone, which can be so huge.
And know that the information you're getting is accurate.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of legal things to wade through. If you're a parent with a child with a special education plan or a 504 plan, there's 20 million pages of paperwork.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I mean, you mentioned before we got started that there's some paperwork involved in signing up. But what does the process look like for folks who want to come down and maybe have their income checked to see if they're eligible for certain programs? And for people who may be from a migrant community, can they feel safe with the information that they provide you, that won't be provided to anyone who might be looking for, citizenship issues or anything like that?
Got it. Let's start with that one. The regulations have never required and have not changed. We do not collect that kind of information. It is unnecessary.
Yeah.
There's other information, including copies of birth dates, things that you would normally need to enroll in school, but we do not collect any kind of immigration information or maintain it on file.
Okay.
So people can feel safe coming through the doors. That is true for all of our services.
Yeah.
And we serve everyone. And that does mean everyone is welcome in our space.
Yeah.
And will receive the same kind of information and consideration and ideally good customer service. Can't do much sometimes about the program paperwork because that's set by
it's not your
law.
You can't
But
do
we'll
anything about
try
it.
to make it as painless as humanly possible. I think the best way to do it is people can go on our website. They can actually look for a child care provider themselves.
Yeah.
So if they, if they're home and by the time they get kids in bed and everything is 10 o'clock at night, they can start the process on there. They can also start with the general application for child care help and support. And they can give us a call. We are always happy to help. There's a couple of good things that changed recently in the past couple years, and one is that if you are a family who qualifies for any kind of Medi-Cal related services, mental health, your health care, partnership health, if you're involved with CalWorks programs, other things like that in that whole category, if you are a CalFresh recipient, so you've signed up for CalFresh to get good, nutritious food, a little support there, or you have been participating with WIC, you are automatically eligible. Then you just need a need, which means that you need to show that you are going to work or you're going to school or you're doing training or you have some medical issues that may require childcare. It makes the process a little bit easier on parents.
Yeah. So kind of like if you get involved in one program, it kind of spreads it out so that you're also involved in potentially other programs as you may
Absolutely.
need.
That's the intent.
That's smart.
Why make it harder? We're getting there.
Well, when there's so many services available, but I mean, people can't keep track of all of them. So that kind of automatic ingestion is probably good for folks so that they can actually access some of the resources that are available.
Right, or, I mean, why have people talk to 6 different places and give them the same exact information in lots of copies?
Yeah.
Ideally, what we're all trying to do is streamline.
Yeah. Now, so you mentioned that you have close to 200 employees now, which is a big economic footprint in the county, and that's grown. I mean, it was It had been a little smaller, and it recently sort of rebounded. Where do you see the next 50 years leaving your organization in terms of economics, and where do you see the programs growing? Do you have a direction identified that you think might be a place where you want to pursue a bigger footprint?
Well, I think that when you look around at the next 50 years, what you're always doing is you're trying to anticipate what may impact our community coming up and down the road.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of room for every time we can start earlier with mental health and well-being, making families, helping them and helping kids be stronger earlier on, right? Because life throws you challenges. It doesn't matter what age you are, but what matters is building those skills and the resilience early on. Knowing how to navigate the ups and downs. And that's a lot of what we've actually been trying to take time to spend and build. We have mental health consultation going on in some of our child care provider programs with family child care homes. This is basically a service where families get to connect and child care providers connect to our mental health specialists who talk about like how do we manage transitions if we see families have a big thing or a big change in their life. Maybe a parent lost a job, maybe they're moving. How do we help kids learn better how to manage their own selves, right? It's all about learning how to manage yourself, and then you become a much better friend, neighbor, family member.
Yeah.
So doing a lot of that work. So that's where we're really moving into, and we've done a lot of work to establish that, as well as like on our mental health side with actual therapeutic services. There's another piece though that's kind of a random piece. You wouldn't necessarily think of changing tides, and it's that we had the opportunity to work as a collaborative group in the long-term recovery of the Rio Del, the Eel River earthquake.
Yeah.
And realizing that more and more, we're starting to see bigger impacts of things like fires across the state. I think we're all waking up every morning very aware when fire season starts and knowing that it's almost year-round, 3/4 of the year now.
Yeah, and climate change is only going to exacerbate those problems over the next incoming years. So
we're definitely seeing things increase, right?
Yeah.
Hurricanes are harsher. Fires are more intense. We live in an earthquake-prone zone.
yes, we do.
It's a matter of being prepared, but also understanding, the great thing about Humboldt is Humboldt has always been a place where neighbors take care of neighbors.
Yeah, yeah.
We can get cut off a lot of the years. There's times when planes can't get in and out, definitely times when the rock slides and landslides, the roads close. And also we're kind of in this wonderful corner behind the redwood curtain where we kind of get forgotten a lot.
Yeah.
But the hard part about that is that when push comes to shove and an emergency happens, not only are we not necessarily a top priority or people can't even get to us, but also we don't usually meet the economic threshold for FEMA help.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not, it's different if you're in the Bay Area or even LA. You can have a block destroyed.
Everything's worth billions, right?
Everything's worth so much more money. And there's a population density, and that's a factor for aid. Humboldt would have, in order to reach that, Humboldt would basically have to lose all of like McKinleyville, Arcata, and Eureka, which we don't want to have happen.
Yeah.
So what we've had to figure out is how do we help each other? What kind of training do we need? That, and I shout out to the folks in Rio Del. They're an amazing community, so incredible, such a beautiful place. It's a long-term commitment to rebuilding. And it's been 2.5 years since that 2022 earthquake. And we were lucky enough to be able to assist with disaster case management. And that's the kind of case management that we do with families in other areas, doing with individuals to figure out how to navigate very complicated paperwork from USDA or SBA or any of the programs that might help with recovery, rebuilding your foundation, right? Because earthquakes, they take out foundations and roofs and walls and chimneys. There's a definite pattern to what happens. And how do you, when you are in the worst point of that experience, how do you know how to navigate paperwork? So that's one of the things that we've actually been doing, and learning how to build in the infrastructure for that system, because I think that's going to be very important in the upcoming years. Hopefully not because we'll be responding to things, but more about being prepared.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that is such I think a need that doesn't get met a lot of the time, and to jump in after an emergency like that and take on that kind of administrative burden, I think shows vision on the part of your organization. So I think that's really, really fantastic. You mentioned that you guys have a gala coming up.
Yes, we do.
And that's going to be between 6 and 8 p.m. at the Sequoia Center on October 10th. What is that for, and what are you hoping to see there?
So a lot of what we're doing is we're celebrating 50 years, and the theme for that is navigating the next 50, looking ahead, and constellations, because we are definitely a seagoing area too, and a river navigating area, and so we thought it fit really well with our name, Changing Tides, and the changes that are coming. So the gala is meant to be a recognition, a celebration. We have a little saying at Changing Tides that over the past 50 years, there's so many people who've come through our doors who have cut their teeth on actual workforce experience, like the jobs being social workers, and moved on and done other amazing things in our community that you basically can't go anywhere without finding somebody who's either come through our doors and gotten childcare or worked for us. Yeah. So we're hoping to capture some of those stories and share them. But I think that's cool. With the 50-year change, to look ahead at the next 50 years and make sure that we are a thriving organization that's helping to maintain and build a thriving community. We're going to do something we've never done before. We're going to do a little fundraising. Okay. And the fundraising, the point for that to us is that we want to establish what we think of as a family and parent support fund, meaning that we would have the ability outside of any federal funding or state funding or budget cuts or things like that to grow a fund and be able to maintain and enhance services that aren't normally covered by existing programs. Yeah. And figure out, the direction the community needs for the next 50 years from us. Yeah. The website is on the television right now. People can see that. If people aren't going to be at the gala but they still want to donate, they can go to the website there, right? Yes. And there's a donor form or something along those lines where people can see what they need to do to give. Absolutely. Because your guys' message is super important, and the work you do is vital. If the economy craters, which a lot of us are afraid might happen now, that makes your role probably even more important, would you say? I mean, how does that impact your operations if things kind of go sour economically? So I think this is where organizations like ours, of course, and like a lot of the nonprofits in our community, we are really fortunate that our community has tons of nonprofits who do excellent work. Yeah. We're part of what helped make that safety net along with government services. Yeah. So if things change at the government level, a lot of that is going to rely on nonprofits, and within nonprofits, we rely on all of you, right? We rely on the community because we're built by the community, we're from the community, and we're part of the community. We live here. Yeah. These are our friends, our neighbors, they're our family. Yeah. So this is where Humboldt really pulls together. Just to give some idea of it, there are the amount of people that nonprofits employ in our area is actually comparable to a large employer. Like if you think about what Cal Poly employs, or you think about what our county office of education or even county services, when you add up all of our nonprofits, large and small, it's a sizable amount of the folks that we actually not only serve, but we employ. Yeah, it's a reflection of the generosity in our community. Absolutely. And your organization especially is at the forefront of that. So thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story. Thank you. That's it for this week. Stay tuned, stay informed.